exciting matchup for you guys here. It's Niv to Light versus Izzet Phoenix, two decks that we think will probably be at the top of the current metagame now that Amalia and Vampires kind of taking a step back.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now, Niv to Light was one of those decks that I thought is a huge winner from the kind of the banning and restricted announcement, as this deck is kind of just, not only was it a little bit slow against the Amalia combo deck, but it's really primed and ready to kind of prey upon all the different sorts of mid-range decks. Most importantly, when the Izzet Phoenix deck is going to be trying to fly in with 3/2s, you got 6/6s to block them.
Yeah. I think this matchup will be kind of interesting here. It'll kind of depend on how fast the Phoenix deck can go and just how many answers the Niv deck can, find in time here. Because being a Yorion deck, you kind of leave a little bit more to luck than usual, but it is kind of necessary to have as many toolbox cards as you need for the matches.
Yeah. They're just going to wind up having an opt here from David's side at end of turn. Now, the Niv deck, like you said, will be a little slow, a little more Yorion-centric. So you still have to kind of dig through things to find stuff. However, you have Bring to Light to do that. You have all these different sorts of cards to help you search for your big kind of threats. And the Phoenix deck is going to want to put those Phoenixes in the graveyard as quickly as possible. But those Lightning Axes don't have a ton of targets when your mono ramp package from the side of Niv to Light is Sylvan Caryatid and this Cornucopia.
Yeah, so definitely Lightning Axe looking real bad here. Ancient Cornucopia we're bringing up on screen here. 3-mana rock. It also gains you life whenever you cast a spell that has one or more colors. It does only activate once per turn, but the more colors you cast, the more life you gain.
And most importantly, this is also going to activate once per turn, so on David's turn as well, if you're going to wind up having a Lightning Helix or something to deal with a Phoenix. So the Niv to Light deck can gain a lot of life, and the Phoenix deck can provide a lot of pressure, but it might really rely on one of those sort of kind of temporal trespass turns in order to kind of do stuff.
I drew this on Scry. I'm good.
All right, so David, forgetting that he did Scry, so deciding he was going to Scry, keep that on top, and draw off of that. So it looks like a handful of Lightning Axes and a handful of Phoenixes from David.
Definitely not lining up very well. It might just be a hard cast Phoenix kind of angle here, unfortunately.
It's not the worst thing in the world. It's like the backup hidden mode of Arclight Phoenix is that you can just pay 4 mana to put it into play, but doing one at a time is not going to line up the greatest when Wesley's going to be gaining life and just buying Yorion this turn.
Interesting. I do see in Wesley's hand a couple of the OTJ reprints, although I'm not sure if that's Vanishing Verse or Leyline Binding. Either way, it's really good removal that lines up into Phoenix here.
Yep, and it looks like David is going to actually find a more proactive spell here, so this Ledger Shredder is going to wind up coming in, and it looks like this might be Leyline Binding coming out here from Wesley.
I think so. It looks like the Cowboy Yeehaw edition of Leyline Binding.
The old Yeehaw Binding, but with plenty of different land types over there. You still have the Ancient Cornucopia tapping for mana, so that is just going to be a little Yeehaw out of there.
Yeah, unfortunately for David, I am thinking that Wesley's going to run away with the game here unless he can find some more outs to things. But as we saw earlier, I think Wesley just has 2 more Leyline Bindings in hand.
Yeah, it looks like 2 more Leyline Bindings. There's a Bring to Light, it looks like, that he found. But the other problem is I think the Tibalt you would want to Bring to Light for is in Wesley's hand.
That is unfortunate. Oh. Binding number 2 coming down.
All right, Arclight Phoenix, meet Leyline Binding. So there's the second one coming down here.
Yeah.
Wesley does only have to pay 1 for that.
The unfortunate part for David here is I think a lot of the main board removal in Wesley's deck lines up really well into Phoenix. Vanishing Verse, Leyline Binding, also Lightning Helix.
Yep. And okay, we are going to wind up having Bring to Light getting cast here. See if there's a fight over this one, and David just kind of shakes his head, has a handful of removal, not counter magic, so probably going to see a Niv coming out from here, but which one?
I see a Fiery Impulse too, that was bad. Probably the Atraxa Effect one,
the old Niv Mizzet Reborn.
Yeah, the 6/6. So this will just fill up Wesley's hand, give him a bit more options to try and close out the game here, I think.
Now, most importantly, Niv Mizzet Reborn can die to 2 lightning axes, which David does have in hand. But we are going to, of course, wind up having a giant restock of Wesley's hand here. And
Yeah,
is that just Vanishing Verse and Pillage the Bog and 8 cards going to the bottom?
Yeah, unfortunately, I've played against Wesley at the store a couple times. This is kind of like normal for his Niv Mizzet hits, unfortunately.
Yeah, the downside to the Niv to Light decks is by adding in cards like Sunfall and Deadly Cover-Up, you're kind of getting rid of a lot of the dual targets that Niv can find you, so we kind of cut down to like 1 or 2 in the main deck only. But here we do, we have a couple of removal spells being pointed at this Niv Mizzet Reborn, and so that's been 2 removal spells, and if we have 1 more spell, Phoenixes will be coming back.
Prankster. Free the Fae.
Here we go. Ooh, that's a good one to get off of that Free to Fae. The Treasure Cruise, Galvanic Iteration is in there as well.
Yeah, those are all good hits, I think. But Cruise might be it. Because I think he's able to use Cruise almost immediately. There's only 1 Phoenix in the yard, 4 other cards.
That'll be exactly
That'll be
enough.
exactly.
Now, I don't want to go on too big of a tangent, but I think one of these cards from the Phoenix deck should have been hitting this BNR. I'm looking at Picklock Prankster, but I know a lot of people feel like Treasure Cruise is the target.
Yeah, Prankster definitely is what kind of kicked Phoenix into Tier 1 when it got printed. Because before, Phoenix had to rely on really clunky spells like Pieces of the Puzzle, which we all know is not that great. 3 mana to look at the top 5, and you take 2 instants and sorceries instead. But, I mean, nobody wants to wait till turn 3 to do that.
And we do see the Vanishing Verse, as you mentioned, not only lining up great because it deals with a monocolored permanent like the Arclight Phoenix, but it is exile or removal, so that is going to be Phoenix bye-bye forever.
Yeah, I do think Wesley has kind of turned the corner here. Oh, the Tibble coming out as a hard cast.
Yeah, why not? We'll just get 7 mana Tibalt, Cosmic Imposter hitting the battlefield. We'll lose a life and then gain 2 life off of our Ancient Cornucopia. We're going to exile the top card of each player's library, and we see it looks like Sylvan Carry added and
Another Shredder, maybe?
I think that might be a Ledger Shredder. It's got power and toughness, so it's not a Treasure Cruise. But Tibalt might just be lights out here because, unfortunately, a Fiery Impulse and Lightning Axe do not hit Planeswalkers.
Yeah, unfortunately for David, I think it might be time to scoop it up and get a game 2, unfortunately. He does have a Torch the Tower in hand, but that doesn't kill Tibalt.
Oh, it's only going to put Tibalt down to 1.
No, but it plussed, so
Yeah, so
Tibalt's a 7.
You don't even have any tokens on the side of David to bargain with, so it can only deal 4 total.
Yeah.
Yeah, David's in a bit of a rough spot here. We do have Treasure Cruise that we drew last turn.
So he also only has 1 Torch the Tower.
That doesn't surprise me. The Singleton Torch the Tower is kind of a hangover from the previous Phoenix list, mostly to deal with Amalia. We are going to have, looks like, exile everything but Galvanic Iteration and cast a Treasure Cruise and pray.
Okay. Yeah, that's not what he wanted to see.
No, probably not. But we are going to end up having another kind of rebuy here with a Free the Fae. So let's see what we can find off of that. We could grab the other Picklock Prankster and continue to do so. Looks like that's what's going to happen. There's an island in hand, too. So if David hasn't made a land drop, we could Free the Fae again.
Yeah.
This is kind of delaying the inevitables. It looks like there's no answer to this Tibalt Cosmic Imposter in all of the Phoenix deck except for maybe Odawara. And you just recast it.
Yeah.
I'm scared on this time, and it doesn't even matter, so I'm just gonna pass. Okay.
I mean, it's not great. I think he should have played the land drop still, but if he played the land drop, he at least can Free the Fae on end step of Wesley's turn and try and go off the next turn. Oh, land Molten Collapse, okay. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Tibalt is on the field, but it's not actually doing anything right now.
No, well, here's something that'll do something. We got an option.
Nah, Locus of Creation, I think.
Yep, this is the. I gotta make sure we don't pull up the fixed alchemy version of this card, but the big old jelly bean with a wall of text on it that's not only going to hit the battlefield and gain Wesley 4 life thanks to the Ancient Cornucopia, but that's also going to wind up drawing a card, and we can deal with the Omnath before we wind up getting a landfall trigger because of that draw on the ETB.
Yeah, Omnath, Locus of Creation, our favorite green giant. There's even a cornucopia for the corn.
It's just like you can play whatever.
Yeah. So Tibble, Cosmic Imposter allows you to play cards that are exiled with Tibble. So even though the Torch the Tower exiles, we're not going to be able to replay that Omnath. Looks like David was checking the exact same thing there.
Yeah, luckily, because otherwise, Omnath coming back every turn is pretty sick.
Yeah.
It's probably for mono green.
But I don't know what David's out here is, actually.
In my professional opinion, I think it's go to game 2.
I would concur. It's 33-20 right now, and I mean, Tibble's has such a high loyalty. I don't think they can take him out in one fell swoop.
We are going to wind up getting Pillage the Bog from Wesley's side. So we're going to be looking at the top 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 cards of our library and putting the best one in our hand. This is like double dig through time amount of cards.
14. Okay. Oh, I thought you said 13. No, I'm tripping.
Yeah.
Do math. 6, 9, 12.
Let's see if Wesley can find the card to close this out. I mean, I don't know how much more David needs to see to scoop up the game here.
I don't know. All right, we got Bring to Lights. We could find something if it's not in our top cards here. And
It also,
Supreme on top there. Looks like whatever it was, we put it in Wesley's hand. So if we don't see it, in there, we're probably going to see it next turn.
Wait, it puts it on the bottom, right? Yeah, on the bottom.
yeah, let's see here. Wesley still has one more. Oh, he dropped the Nimbus. Well, that tells us. But yeah, Wesley still has one more Leyline Binding in hand and Molten Collapse. Like, I really don't know what David's out here is.
All right, well, we got another Free the Fae. We're going to wind up... Ooh, Spell Pierce doesn't really line up well here. But it's,
no, but
it's better than the Impulse, I guess. Yeah. I mean, we have an army of Picklock Pranksters that can't really do anything right now. We haven't really found like a proper eidetic memory to start putting counters on them either. And like you mentioned, there's a Leyline Binding in Wesley's hand still. There's also a Lightning Helix. There's a whole plethora of things. And David just might be prolonging the inevitable here.
Okay. Oh, keeps an opt. I mean, he has been looking at a lot of cards. There's a good chance he actually gets Phoenixes in his next couple looks.
I mean, if he gets a Phoenix, it will be... We know it's going to be met by this Leyline Binding or this Lightning Helix or something else on Wesley's side. He does kind of have everything and the kitchen sink that he can wind up throwing at David. But David just finding a lot of lands off of that.
I'll put it on the red side.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, that's perfect.
I don't wanna, like,
Red sleeve for the red land.
All right, so it doesn't want to take that one out. Maybe just kind of assuming that he is going to be dead sometime soon. So he doesn't really want to have to flip that one over. But Wesley going to pick up a card for turn. I think it's just going to be either slamming Yorion or slamming a Niv Mizzet and kind of going from there.
It would be kind of funny if Wesley actually picked up a Beanstalk off that last pillage, because he'd be able to play Yorion, blink all the Leyline Bindings, and draw the cards.
And it does look like we're actually going to wind up seeing the Tibble ultimate ability coming down. So exiling all cards from all graveyards and then adding a 3 red mana. So we're going to wind up having the ability to cast basically anything that was in David's graveyard, and David's just going to scoop it up after that. He says, yeah, you're going to dig through the rest of your deck, and you're going to find whatever it is you need to kill me. So that's going to be game number 1 going on over to Wesley.
The ultimate there was kind of funny, too. It's definitely getting rid of David's answers, but at the same time, I was like, what are you going to do if David doesn't scoop it up? Is he just going to start playing David's deck? I'm the Phoenix deck now.
I am the Phoenix deck now, but all of our Phoenixes, by the way, have been exiled, and we had a bunch of card draw spells in there. We had... I guess, removal spells that you'd be able to cast for whatever David's going to really be putting up there. So just effectively telling David that you have no way to win. I'm just going to eventually take this game.
Yeah. Our players discussing their sideboard here. Wesley seeming to have a Traxa in his sideboard.
All right, well, that's definitely something that can help close out the game. It's a little difficult to bring to light for.
Yeah, as in it's illegal too.
Yeah, you can't bring to light for that one, but I have seen some of these Nif to light lists just playing it because you have Cornucopia, you have Sylvan Caryatid, and you have Fable the Mirror Breaker in your list. You have plenty of ways to get up to 7 mana pretty quick.
Yeah, as we saw in the last game, he did just end up hard casting the Tibble on, 7 mana be damned.
Yeah, why not? He even had it flipped over already in his deck because he just knew he was never casting the Valky side.
Funny you should say that. The last time I played against Wesley, he turned to Valkyrie, and I was like, wait, what?
Oh, no. Oh, no.
It was a little heartbreaking to see for sure.
So from both of these players, the sideboards, we know that Wesley's sideboard is going to have a smorgasbord of different kinds of spells that he can wind up bringing in. We're probably going to wind up seeing anything that can wind up targeting the graveyard of the Phoenix deck. We may wind up seeing something that can kind of just continue to go forward and board wipe if Wesley winds up falling behind. There are deadly cover-ups and things like that that you can bring to light for to get rid of the Phoenix problem and whatever's on the battlefield. But from David's side, I'm a little more interested. What does this Phoenix deck kind of do? Because we know it has a sideboard that can kind of transform against some of the other mid-range decks, but I'm not sure you want Crackling Drake and Young Pyromancer against Niv Mizzet and Atraxa.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit hard for sure, especially Wesley actually just told his opponent he has a Traxa. But you know what? The one card I actually think is really good in both of these decks that they're probably both gonna bring in is actually Ashiok. Ashiok on one side being able to mill the Phoenix deck and then exile their graveyard, but on the other side actually, I think it's Dreamweaver.
I hope I can.
Dream Render.
And then David being able to use Ashiok to stop Wesley from Bring to Light anything is also kind of a way to keep him in check, because I think even in that last game, despite all the leyline bindings, if he wasn't able to Bring to Light, it wasn't that game ending, I think.
It's a hard cast the Tibble.
He did hard cast the Tibble.
Yeah.
But in most cases, you're not going to be tapping 7 mana to hard cast the Tibble. You are going to be trying to Bring to Light for it early. So I can definitely see Ashiok coming in these cases. I don't think there's anything from the Phoenix deck that's going to wind up kind of being something that can deal with Sylvan Caryatid and such. Maybe if there's like a Braids or something that can deal with some of these artifacts, like the Cornucopia.
Yeah, a Braid would definitely be good. I'm more interested because for David's deck, if I was him, I would actually want to bring in more cards just for the sake of taking out a lot of these pieces of removal.
Oh, that's true.
Just because, yes, there are creatures, but a lot of times it doesn't line up super well, so maybe trimming some amount of impulses, trimming some amount of lightning axes. They do still kill smaller Niv Mizzet as well as Omnath, but it is kind of a late game play, so if you see that in your opening hand, you're like, this is kind of a dead card, what am I going to do with it? And he kind of ends up dirtling like we saw in the first game here.
Yeah, so we could potentially see David bringing in more counter magic. I mean, Mystical Dispute is really good against both Niv Mizzet, Atraxa, and as a third card, Bring to Light. Those are all blue cards, so that winds up coming in and comes into play very effectively. If Wesley's going to try to kind of slam down a Bring to Light for at least Converge 2 as early as like turn 3 or 4, Spell Pierce all of a sudden becomes a lot more attractive from David's side. Negates are on the board too, in case there's going to be a board of Phoenixes and you're worried about getting Vanishing Verse, Leyline Binding, or Sunfalled. So probably seeing a lot of the counter magic coming in from David's side. Wesley, though, probably going to have to be the one that's a little bit more proactive in this matchup and will most likely have a longer game compared to David.
Yeah, definitely. Because like you said, on David's side, I am looking forward to more counter magic, probably Ashioks, because Ashioks are still very good in this meta. But also, honestly, if it was me, I might bring in the Crackling Drakes just to have more threat density. Because it is not a monocolor permanent that you can Vanishing Bird, so it does kind of limit Wesley's removal a little bit. It's also big enough to not die immediately to like Lightning Helix and stuff like that. And I think just like, you know, having a bit more variation in threats to try and get around what Wesley's got going, I think is really important.
It might also be good if you have copies of Fable the Mirror Breaker in your sideboard from David's side, because you have the plan of flipping your Fable and just creating a bashing army of crackling drakes that are just living to serve, creating, you know, like these creatures that can wind up being 6, 7, 10 power very easily from David's side.
Oh, definitely. 1 mana for, you know, a 9/4 that draws you a card. I'll take that value.
And if you do wind up running into any sort of graveyard hate or Tibble exiling graveyards again, those crackling drakes are just still going to count everything that is in exile from the instant sorcery count from David's side. So let's see what the players wind up having done with their sideboards here, as Dave is going to shuffle up, look at his top 7, and we'll be on the play for game number 2.
Oh, David instant maul, no land. You hate to see it.
Looks like both players have mulliganed down to 6, though. So both players going to be a little bit more on even ground. But David, I guess, has been having a rough day here, as he said again, and just immediately threw his cards back in his deck.
Yeah, you're already on the back foot, and then your deck really working against you. It's never what you want to see.
So David, what is a hand that David is looking for in this circumstance from the Phoenix side of things? Like, are you just looking to try to, like, go off what your Phoenix is? Or are you looking for a hand that has a little bit more longevity and you kind of can look through more cards?
I think it wants to be a hand full of stuff like Considers, Sleight of Hand, Ops. Honestly, if he has a Ledger Shredder in that hand, that would kind of be the carrot on top there, because I think with David, his plan, if he kept the Phoenixes in, he just kind of wants to go fast, because if you let the game run long, then Wesley kind of has his choice of removal spells, versus if you try to overwhelm him with as many Phoenixes as you can, you know, and a Ledger Shredder, all of a sudden maybe he can only remove 1 thing a turn, and then that actually might be enough to close out the game.
So we'll see if that is what Dave is going to wind up having in his 6. Wesley, on the other hand, probably looking to keep a hand very similar to what he had in game number 1. Lots of removal, maybe some common ramp, trying to get a Bring to Light out sometime, some point in time.
Definitely. Wesley's game 1 hand, I think, is about as good as you can get with Nif to Light. Had every piece of removal he needed at the right time, had life gain, had, you know, his rock to accelerate him. At no point was he stuck on lands, which was usually the main problem with Nif to Light.
And we did see here Wesley was able to put back a Deadly Cover-Up because there is a Bring to Light in hand here, so we can just tutor that one up if we need to. And we do see Spell Pierce in David's hand, so we do wind up having some interaction to kind of combat the package that Wesley's going to play. Most importantly, though, David has a very powerful turn 2 play and is not going to be stuck with a bunch of Phoenixes in hand. Instead, it's the Ledger Shredder that will wind up just immediately eating a Lightning Helix.
That is very unfortunate. If he had kept that Shredder around for just another turn, I think that Shredder might have run away with the game. But David now having to kind of think a little bit about his next step. I can't really see his hand. I don't see any Phoenixes. I see a land for sure.
So there's definitely just a Steam Vent coming in here. It's going to shock in. And
oh, he passes the turn.
All right. I did see Opt, and we know there's a Spell Pierce, so there's probably one other card in hand. I think 2 other cards in David's hand here. And looks like Sylvan Caryatid is just going to be the play here for Wesley. Is Wesley missed? No, okay, Wesley does have another land drop. Was just trying to maybe bait out some interaction there.
Yeah, I do think David was a little bit too aggro-minded during his last turn. He knows that Wesley has all the removal in the world, and having Spell Pierce in hand makes me want to think he wants to fade a turn and actually play it on turn 3 when he can try and protect the Ledger Shredder, but also trigger it. So that it won't die to Lightning Helix.
That's very true. But instead, David winds up with a Dead Bird in his graveyard and draws a land for turn and is now in the tank about how he wants to proceed with these turns. Did wind up shocking in and not casting a spell last turn. So Wesley will be aware that there's some form of interaction available, but doesn't quite know what that card is going to be. David will now just play a tapped Steam Vents here on turn number 4, so kind of signaling there's no Phoenixes or anything in hand, and just gonna ship it back to Wesley.
This is why you pay your taxes, friends.
So you don't get hard punished by the Nivdelite government?
Yeah,
Or-
so you don't get smite from the air with a lightning bolt from the sky.
I guess technically he's the guild pact now, so like in theory, Azorius is the law, these guilds of Ravnica and everything. You know, that might wind up being a theme here, but it is going to be Ancient Cornucopia trying to be jammed into a Spell Pierce. So that was not going to resolve because unfortunately that fourth land from Wesley came into play tap, so David does get rewarded for being a little patient with that Spell Pierce after all.
Yeah, definitely, but David making that face again, I don't think he has any good plays here. There is a Picklock Prankster in hand.
There's at least 2 of us, David. Don't worry. Asking how many people are watching me misplay right now, and don't know if that's a reference to the Ledger Shredder play or just maybe what he's kind of thinking about.
Can't be that many.
Yeah. I don't think either of our... Wesley has been on stream before, but I don't believe
Even
David.
salutes the camera just to let us know that he knows.
I should have done that at end step. Also, they can't really see your hand.
David's getting in his own head here a little bit, trying to figure out, like, saying he should have done something on end step but didn't. I mean, he does kind of want to be able to multi-spell in a turn to get a Phoenix back, so playing Izzet Phoenix deck, you do want to kind of keep a certain amount of cards in hand, but it looks like you're just going to wind up starting off with Free the Fae here.
Oh, down peasy.
We got Young Pyromancer sideboarded in. Can't grab that one off Picklock Prankster, unfortunately. We can wind up grabbing a Consider here, and now we have the ability to either replay this Picklock Prankster or try to find a Phoenix and multi-spell instead.
Yeah, let's see. Tapping 1 or tapping 2? I do kind of think he needs to be, a little bit more patient here because he has no Phoenixes in hand. He has no ways to get any sort of card advantage.
Did I miss land drop anywhere? I didn't miss it.
Just making sure that David has played all of his lands here as Picklock Prankster enters the battlefield and just going to ship it on back to Wesley.
Yeah,
This is a bit of a dangerous spot to be in, though, by playing that land tapped, signaling the coast is clear for this Bring to Light coming out from Wesley.
There it is. Yeah, David needs to remember, even if you take 2 lives, sometimes the bluff is enough for people to pass the turn, wait until they have some sort of backup plan, so they're not running directly into Spell Pierce. And actually, with Spell Pierce being so fresh in Wesley's mind, I think it might have actually paid off.
Well, instead, the payoff is going to be Tybalt, Cosmic Imposter. Hey, we saw you last game.
Tybalt is here, and he's here to wreck house.
All right, we are just going to have a blessing of the Tybalt here. So it could be a sleight of hand being got from David's side, and Wesley's going to flip over into just a land.
That's pretty good, making his land drop off a Tybalt here.
I'll pass it.
Oh.
This is your grave.
Yeah, and Tybalt, of course, says you can use mana of any color to cast a spell, so the shocking into the Stomping Grounds is going to mean that you can sleight of hand, and you can just do that. Doesn't matter, you have a dual mana.
Oh man, Tybalt really just coming out here and telling every deck, look at me, I am you now.
We do have David getting the turn back to him. There is a Crackling Drake on his side, however, Tybalt can just
I thought you
exile
wanted
that.
more exile.
Yeah, unfortunately, running anything out into Tybalt feels really bad. And Phoenix doesn't usually run any sort of haste outlets like maximize velocity or anything like that, so unfortunately, I don't think this Drake is long for the world. 4 mana to draw a card seems really bad.
I think you gotta keep Phoenix.
Well, we do have the Crackling Drake hitting the battlefield. Looks like this is just going to be
I do, but not like a
a
lot.
sleight of hand, and I believe just a 1 mana sorcery in this. I'm sorry, the Spell Pierce in the graveyard. It's just a 2/4 currently. But we do have the Picklock Prankster being able to slowly chip away at this Tybalt's life total, the loyalty total.
It's kind of relevant actually, because he has to -3 to get rid of the Drake here if he wants to go with that plan. Otherwise, next turn, the Drake and Picklock Prankster actually put him in range of dying. Oh, but he's gonna plus here.
Yep. Signed why not? Ooh, hitting a Bring the Light. All right, we're in business.
What a hit. This is it. David, pack it up. I think this is done.
Yeah, we can grab a Niv, we can grab a board wipe, we can grab any sort of thing that we want, and Wesley is just going to immediately grab the deck, cast this Bring to Light, and
I think it's Niv here, yeah.
Niv Reborn. All right, the Avengers have assembled for the Niv to Light deck.
Everything is going Wesley's way, unfortunately for David. Niv coming down, being able to refill his hand. Unfortunately, he won't be able to grab stuff like Leyline Binding, but Vanishing Verse and other forms of removal are still very live, as well as basically every other card in the deck. Another Bring to Light.
Bring to Light, and okay, so
Just a
Bring to Light.
Yeah.
I'll play a land.
Not the best hit from Niv Mizzet, but just enough because we have Bring to Light, we have Tibble that is threatening the ultimate next turn. We can get a Bring to Light out of our own graveyard to do that again. We kind of have everything that we want from Wesley's side, and David's not quite out because David could just kind of find
Oh, they brought up an interesting thing. Does Picklock Prankster on an adventure count as an instant or sorcery for Drake?
I don't believe it should.
It should have, because most of these adventure cards count as the creature side when they're in any other zone except when they're cast, right?
Yeah, I do remember a ruling that we had to go over where I was trying to cast a. I was trying to see if
don't
I
knock
could.
on our door. We don't know.
I was trying to see if I could cast a
I don't even know, honestly.
Virtue of the Black Virtue off of a Conduit of Words. So targeting it, since it is a permanent, and then being able to cast the instant or sorcery side of it was allowed. However, this should only count as a creature in exile.
Yeah, I think so.
Garrett is coming over just to verify.
Tibble off the top. Yeah. Does it count for crackling, Jake? Should still be under. What's the word for Tibble?
This should be in any zone. It should still just be a creature, but we are going to have Garrett just verify.
I believe so, because that's how a lot of these.
Because he does own it. Oh yeah, if it's owned, not control.
Type cards work. All right, so getting the ruling there. Yeah, it's just creature. It's not going to count towards that Crackling Drake. However, David still does have the ability to pump it up a little bit more. There's currently 1, 2, 3 instants or sorceries in his graveyard. 4. It looks like Ledger Shredder, and it looks like there's a Treasure Cruise as well in David's hand.
Bird is back. Yeah, David really needs to figure out a way to get this Drake big enough so he can kill Niv, because otherwise, I mean,
Connive as well.
Tybalt about to ult right here, kind of bad for him.
Alright, so if there was 4 previously, there will now be 5. Connive can make it 6.
Discarding off, there's the 6th.
And if there's one more, now you're going to draw 3. And if there's one more instant or sorcery, I mean, there's still movement you have to attack. So it's not like you're in the clear to kill Tibble, but you can threaten Tibble.
Definitely, because... Yeah, the plus side is definitely, if he's able to swing in big enough and kill Niv, then that does leave Picklock Prankster to kind of poke Tybalt a little bit, have it not ult this next turn, and try and get back into this game a little bit.
Yeah, but we do have this face-up Bring to Light that Wesley found off of the Niv Mizzet Reborn, so he can replace Niv with another one, he can find board wipe, he could do any number of things here from his side. And David, remember that Picklock Prankster is exiled with Tibble, so it is not on an adventure for David's side, as we do have his adventure token on the bottom side of the screen. So that means that a board wipe or something will leave David with nothing on the battlefield.
Yeah, definitely not looking good here.
6 for? Yeah,
6 with the possibility of being larger.
All right, so this is just going to be, do you want to trade or do you want me to double spell? Looks like there is another Picklock Prankster in David's hand, so it could have freed the Fae into killing Tibble if this block was not created, or if that block was not forced. So gets rid of the Niv Mizzet, got one thing out of the way, but is he going to be able to do anything else? Looks like just a follow-up Ledger Shredder, so assembling a board, but Wesley has an answer.
I'm also really curious why he didn't swing with the Picklock Prankster. Oh, he just said he forgot.
I should have attacked with the picklock prankster too.
Yeah, Tibalt being able to ult here might actually be it.
I mean, that was why you attack with the Crackling Drake in the first place. Is you attack with both of them and threaten lethal on the Tibalt.
Yeah. Oh, plussing the Tibalt.
All right.
Wesley's playing with his food a little bit here.
I mean, Wesley is not really priced into having to do minus the Tibalt right now because you have a Bring to Light in hand already.
Definitely. Bring to Light coming out here.
Wouldn't you be surprised if we see Bring to Light for Deadly Cover Up?
I think so, because he just stopped himself to tap the Sylvan Carry at it instead, trying to get a little bit of extra value here before he decides to blow up the board.
Deadly Cover Up can just get rid of the Crackling Drakes entirely. Sunfall's another option here, just exiles everything, and David is completely tapped out, so there's no counter magic available for this, and it looks like it's just going to be bye-bye board.
Yeah, Sunfall is extremely good here, because Wesley's also able to hold up mana to actually flip the incubator token at David's end step and start cracking in with it, you know. If David plays out any sort of a blocker, you can just minus Tibalt on it and just keep going through.
Yep, so we are just going to end up having a Triumph hitting the battlefield as well. There's looks like another Leyline Binding or Vanishing Verse in hand there, but no, you're just going to play Pick the Prankster, why not?
I think it goes in my adventure, right?
I think it goes in your adventure.
You call it notice judge?
Now they are deciding whose adventure zone it goes into if he decides to do it. But David realizes the writing is on the wall. He's going to pack up the cards. That's going to be Wesley taking this one 2-0. The Niv to Light deck coming out on top and being the superior grindy deck in this kind of head-to-head matchup.